Hello viewers, Super GT here. So, okay, the Spa daily race. This race was absolutely cursed with corner cutters in qualifying. Now thankfully, they've got rid of that with patch 1.48. So you can't do that anymore. So that's why I wanted to wait until later in the week to get this video out. Because, well, if I had done it any earlier, then it would have been kind of ruined by all these corner cutter people. So, hopefully now we can have a proper race around the legendary Spa circuit. So I'm fresh from my 200 lap endurance race, which took 7 hours and 50 minutes. So I've had plenty of practice and therefore I've got no excuse for failure, basically. But my first excuse is that the rolling starts are very spread around here. Now, it's pretty much a rule in Gran Turismo Sport that if you're going to do a rolling start, it's going to be very spread out if the track ends with a chicane. So tracks like Suzuka, Catalunya, and now Spa, the rolling starts are horrifically spread out because the chicane just messes you right up. On this occasion, it messes up most of the grid. Pretty much everyone who isn't in first place gets messed up. But the German there going quite slowly. He got the penalty, just backed out of it completely, and we got up into third place. A little bit later into the race, end of lap number 2. This is about as close as I got to the back of the Audi in second. So I fought quite hard to get into the slipstream. Now this is very much a fuel-saving race. You do have to save quite a lot of fuel for this one. So I was actually burning quite a lot just to get onto the back of him. And by the end of lap 4, or halfway through lap 4, just pushing a little bit too much to stay within the slipstream, and I make that mistake, lose a couple of seconds and drop well out of slipstream range. And this is the situation at the end of lap number 5. I was quite surprised to see the guy in second in the Audi go into the pit lane. So we gain that position there, go up into second place. We're just going to monitor the gap here as we come through the first corner, the last source hairpin. And that was Rambazamba just coming out of the pit lane, you might have just spotted, and he's about 4 seconds behind. Now that might seem like a very big gap, but I'm still having to fuel save, and I'm presuming that because he's gone into the pit lane with fresh tyres and a bit of extra fuel, that he doesn't have to. By this point here, end of lap 6, start of 7, gap comes down a little bit. By the end of lap 7, gap down to 2.3, he's definitely gaining, so he's using a lot more fuel than I am. And this is the situation at the end of the race. I'm only on 2% fuel at this point, and we know how bad I am at getting to basically the final corner and running out of fuel. So make sure that doesn't happen again. But I do have a 1.4 second advantage, down to 1% fuel as we go into the final corner. WDP in the Peugeot is going to win this one. He's 8 seconds ahead. As we come through here, still on 1%, so we're okay. We're going to finish in second. He got quite close though. One more lap and he probably would have overtaken me. The Peugeot there, creeping to a halt over the line. I'm guessing he was just trolling me, because I think he was quite comfortable actually. We actually only finished half a second away from the lead in the end. But what I'm going to do here is whip out the Taylor Swift Audi R8. The Taylor Swift livery gives you about 2 seconds a lap. And this is my story of my qualifying session here, because getting penalties, making mistakes, exploring the limits. You see here, just going a little bit too wide onto the AstroTurf. Onto the dark green Astro, you don't want to touch it. I think that's kind of a rule around this circuit. And if it's light green, it's okay. If it's dark green, you don't want to touch it. Another penalty, running too wide. So this was kind of a cursed session. And we were 3/4 of a second up. And again, we just go into the dark green stuff and completely lose control. The only upside really is that I'm finding the limits. I'm exploring what you can and can't do. But I find that sometimes in the game, it's best to just restart. And it kind of clears your mind. You can see that here. So I did about 8 laps there. And I just could not hook it up. My record there, 2:18.99. I know I could do a 2:17. I could go a second quicker than what I've done there. And my first lap in this session, I did it. So let's have a look at this qualifying lap. And I'll just go slowly at some points just to show you exactly where to brake and etc. and track limits. Into the first corner, quite an easy 100 board, looking for that, just brake alongside it. Nice and patient on the throttle, because you don't want to get on it and back off of it. and you can go as far as the yellow curb on the left hand side there. You can kind of run your wheels on it and it doesn't really unsettle your car. As you come down towards Eau Rouge, you want to take a lot of the curb at Eau Rouge to give you a better line for Raidillon. So here, take a lot of the curb, make sure your right wheels don't go beyond that white line. I was a little bit away from the apex there, but through the curb at the top, just make sure you have 2 wheels on the curb and you're okay, and I don't get a penalty for that. So it's very close on the bottom and the top of the hill. I wasn't actually on the apex in the middle. Braking just after the 100 ball, pretty much on the end of the curb, and that gets you into this corner okay. Now, this is the Audi R8 for reference, and I'm running brake bias all the way to the front, running the curbs there. Here, go as far as the light green, don't want to go any further than that. Down here, looking for the curb on the left hand side, you're going to brake at the start of that, trail brake in, go deep, off the throttle, coasting, and then patient, and then back on the throttle late. So you're kind of turning that corner into 2 corners with 2 apexes. Through here, that was kind of a conservative line, could have used more curb on the inside, but I got through there safely after spinning quite a lot of times in the earlier practice session. So here, missed the apex to begin with, but on the power quite early, and as soon as you're on the power you don't want to be back off of it. So that was actually not too bad, but I could have gained a little bit more by getting close to the apex. So braking at the, oh sorry, not braking, but yeah, braking at the start of the curb, turning in at the same time, so trail braking in, and here on the power nice and early, going as far as the edge of the red and yellow curb, not onto the dark green. Here a little bit away from the curb, could have used a bit more there, but here use all of the red and yellow. On the inside as well, you can take this corner flat out if you get it dead right, as I have done there. So you do have to be committed with the curbs. Use a lot of the curb on the entry, on the apex and on the exit, and you can take that corner flat out. It gives you a better run on this uphill section towards Blanchemont. Use plenty of the track on the outside if you have to. You can run 2 wheels across there and here as well. Looking for the 150 board, the first board on the left hand side. And this first curb, you can take quite a lot of it. You can take quite a lot of that. It does unsettle the car, so watch out for that. And then just take a nice straight line towards the finish line as we finish the lap with a 2:17.7. So weirdly, just the first lap in the new session, just like it cleared my mind, and immediately I do the lap I knew I could have done. Could have maybe gone a few tenths quicker, but that was quite good. Only half a second away from the top 10 at the time of doing it, so I'm quite happy with that. But maybe a few tenths more to be gained if I were to go back at it. So we did a race as Super GT, who had a qualifying lap. I'm going to go on to Ram Shadow, who doesn't have a qualifying lap, and start from the back, because starting from the back is more fun usually. And I'm going to jump into the Lexus. So the Lexus it's one of those cars I really do enjoy using, and for this little practice session here, just trying to work out what the car is like, what's it handle like, how quick is it, how easily can you go flat out through Eau Rouge and Raidillon. Bit too much curb there, I'm going to get a penalty for that. The first thing I did notice though is that because it's quite a chunky car, it's actually really good over curbs, so you can abuse the curbs a little bit more than you can in other cars. I'm going to start 19th for this one, so not quite last but near enough at the back of the pack. And I've seen it in so many of my recent videos actually that starting at the back can be fun. And also you need a lot of patience. We saw that in the Ferrari at Kyoto video, why you shouldn't rage quit. That the race can come to you if you're patient. So we've got an insta-bottle there from the Porsche driver for the first chicane. And the space is going to open up at the inside of the AMG here. I'm going to get late on the brakes at the Lassour's hairpin and go for the position. So that's 2 positions gained already. And I'm going to try to tuck back into the slipstream of the cars ahead. And that is quite crucial on the fuel-saving race that this is. The tyres, of course you have to monitor your tyres, but really this race is all about the fuel. I think that's the main thing here. And slipstream therefore plays quite an important part of that, as you do save quite a lot of fuel while being in the slipstream. As we've got a penalty up ahead for the Italian, we're going to go through him up into 16th. And we're going to just really try to gain as many positions as possible. I've got number 6 on my car, so if we can get through to 6th place, then I'll be quite happy with that, which would not be such a bad return from 19th on the grid. So let's see if we can do that. It's going to be a long race, 8 laps times about 2 minutes 20-ish or a bit more. So you're looking at near enough 20 minutes of racing. So let's see if we can get through this order as quickly as we can. Or, well, that's the thing. Do you have to do it quickly? Maybe you don't have to do it quickly. You can be patient and let the race come to you. That's one thing. Especially if you're saving enough fuel. Some people who haven't saved enough fuel will have to go a little bit slow on the final lap, and you can take advantage of that. And in terms of fuel, so it's quite an easy calculation, I suppose, for this race. 8 laps, so divide 100 by 8, 12.5. So every lap you can use 12.5% roughly. So at the end of lap 1 you want to be on 87.5, end of lap 2 you want to be on 75, end of lap 3 on 62.5, end of lap 4 50, and so on and so on. So you can monitor your progress, so you can just literally see if you've had enough fuel. And I prefer to go by the fuel percentage rather than the laps remaining, as I don't really trust the laps remaining thing. It's not, I don't think it's the best way to do it. I prefer just to go by the fuel percentage. But then again, this is me talking, and I often run out of fuel. So ignore everything I say about fuel and strategy. AMG up the inside, put the radar on last moment, but we just give him space on the inside. He actually spins out nearly. And the Audi ahead has a penalty, so we're presumably going to get past him, as the penalty zone is on the Kemmel Straight, which is coming up. So judging the Eau Rouge Raidillon complex a little bit differently when you're in the slipstream, you can take it flat out when you're doing it in qualifying, you take it flat out. But in the race, your tyres are going to wear out, and you're in the slipstream, so you get a bit of understeer, so you can't quite take it as flat out as you would like. So another thing here, okay, so fuel saving really is an important thing in this race, and the main ways I was doing it is, one, to be in the slipstream. So if you're like 1.7 seconds away from someone, just really rev the car out, burn a bit of fuel just to get into the slipstream range, which is about 1.5 roughly. So it does help a lot to be in the slipstream, and therefore once you're in it you can save a lot more fuel, so it's worth fighting to get into it. So there's that. Also, leaner settings. I don't normally use leaner settings, but this race it kind of worked. So if you're stuck right behind someone coming through a couple of corners, you can just whack it into like lean setting 2 or 3 just for like a couple of corners. When you're onto a straight again, put it back down to 1. But at the end of the straight you can put it into a leaner setting again. So I was doing it at the end of the Kemmel Straight quite a few times. And once you reach your top speed, or near enough to top speed, in this car you're looking at about 160. So when you get to about 158 miles an hour, you can just put it into lean setting 2, and you're not really losing much speed, but you are saving fuel. So that's one way of doing that. And then there's coasting. I think this is something that I haven't appreciated enough. By coming through a lot of corners, you just lift off the throttle completely for like half a second. And if you just do that corner after corner, so let's say a couple of corners per lap, then you're just adding up the amount of time that you're not on the throttle, and it all adds up in the end. Okay, so we're out the inside of the Audi. That was a very slow lap there, lap 2. You can see the gap to the guys ahead. It's now 2.2 seconds. And it's opened up quite a lot. I'm going to use quite a lot of fuel here, just revving up the engine. You can see here I go quite deep into the rev range, just to really get away. Because something that can completely ruin your race is if someone behind you just keeps fighting with you, and you just end up losing so much time, and it's just the worst thing that can happen. So some occasions I think you can excuse yourself for just using a bit more fuel just to make sure you don't get fought against too much. So you might just see there on the left hand side someone's gone very deep into the braking zone, and he's just going to come across here, and it looked like I hit him even though he's in a ghost. It looked really weird. I don't know what happened with that collision, but it looked like I smashed through him. I don't know, some weird physics going on there. So we gained a position there, and now I'm onto the back of this pack. So laps sort of 3 and 4, I was on my own because there was a bit of a gap, but I had to spend it being patient and waiting to get back into the slipstream. So finally we got there at the sort of halfway through lap 5, and this is the end of lap 5 now, and we have another tasty pack here to try to fight our way through. Around the outside of Mercedes, he actually bails to the right hand side, goes into the pit lane, so we're going to gain a position there. So up into 11th. So there are a few people who go into the pit lane. You really don't want to go in the pit lane. You have to just save the fuel. It's a much quicker way of racing. So we've got 2 Supras battling, and with a Lamborghini ahead and then the Ferrari behind. So within immediate sight, 7th place is there. 6th place is actually just down the hill, so not too far away. So as we come down here, And the two guys here, side by side, the Ferrari and the Supra, that's going to slow them right down. I'm going to get the run here, get the momentum as we go over the crest at the top of the hill, onto the Kemmel straight, bears to the right. I'm going to go to the left. I'm in the slipstream, so I've judged that nicely. I've got the left-hand side and the slipstream, so I can pull past the Ferrari. A bit of coasting into the braking zone just to save a tiny bit more fuel, as we then come through the Lacombe chicane, through the right-hander down towards this very tricky corner here, as you just get a lot of understeer as it's a downhill corner, and just going to tuck in behind the Lamborghini. The Lamborghini having quite a bad lap here, as he was up ahead of these cars, but then just dropping down. Still in the slipstream, and just monitoring the fuel once again. So at the end of this lap, this is going to be 3/4 of the way into the race at the end of this lap. So we want to be 3/4 of our way down our fuel tank, which is 25% left. We're on 27% at the moment. So actually, we're probably going to be a little bit behind schedule with our fuel. So you can see through here, in lean setting 3, through the Fania chicane, and because I'm stuck behind these cars, there's nothing I can do. So I might as well save fuel by going into a leaner setting. I'm not going to be able to overtake them, not through this kind of section. Still in lean setting 2, coming through here onto the back straight, and then finally go back into lean setting 1, or power setting 1, as we go onto the straight. You always want to use 1 onto a straight. This car really seems to suffer on the straights actually. I thought this car was always a good car in straight line, but I was actually losing quite a lot of time. But then again, I am against a Supra and a Huracan, which are both very good cars. Lean setting 6 as we come into the chicane, again saving a bit more fuel. As we end this lap, I'm going to be on 24%, or is it going to be 23? It's going to be 23. Technically, I'm only 1% behind schedule because 0% is also a percent. So I've actually still got 24% of fuel left. As we enter the braking zone for turn 1, lap 7, less than 2 laps to go. So is 7th place possible? I think it is, but it's going to be tough. Let's see if we can do it. Starting from 19th, let's not forget. So we're in the top 10 already. If we can gain a few more positions, I think that'd be really good. That'd be a good return from the back of the pack. Through Eau Rouge, through Radion at the top of the hill. The Lamborghini gets it quite slowly. Going to pull to the left-hand side, and therefore the slipstream. People make that mistake of defending the inside, but what you want to do is actually stay in the slipstream. So you made that mistake there. I'm going to have the slipstream with the cars up ahead. Up the inside, or around the outside, we're just going to turn into the inside for the next bit. And there's a bit of contact there, and annoyingly I get a penalty for that. And I feel like it was a bit unfair, because we kind of just... It was kind of a racing incident, bit of contact. I don't think either of us really meant it. And as a result, I went across the curb a little bit too much, get a penalty. So that is quite frustrating. So in 9th at the moment, it's going to be tough to get any more positions here. I think the main thing really is just to keep as close to this Supra as I can, so that when I get this penalty served, that I'm not going to drop too far back. Well, we've got half a lap until we've got to serve a penalty. So for now, just going to keep as close as we possibly can. He drifts a little bit wide, but it's a good job that he's in a Supra because it's a very quick kind of straight line. So he's going to tow me up the straight, up through Blanchimont. Going to get a bit of understeer as we come through Blanchimont, so it's not flat out. Not at these speeds with this amount of tyre wear late on in the race. Into the final chicane. I'm in a tough situation here. It's quite a tough one because we've got a car to attack, a car to try to get past, but also a car behind us trying to get past us. Although having said that, he has just dropped off a little bit through that final chicane. That's probably going to help me here because as I serve this penalty, I'm going to lose a bit of time. Well, half a second presumably, or maybe a bit more. So I do need to get a bit of a buffer so that by the time I do serve it, the car behind doesn't overtake me. So let's see if that happens. Down through Eau Rouge, through Radion, over the top. And again, just tuck into that slipstream as much as possible, just trying to keep as close as we possibly can, trying to keep as much time in our pocket. So the guy is 9/10 behind. We lose our time there. And he's going to definitely gain, but it's not going to be enough. We're going to stay ahead for now. Keep the position. So that mistake he made at the chicane on the end of the final lap, or the end of the previous lap should I say, that probably cost him this 9th position, that Lamborghini behind me. If he didn't make that mistake, he probably would have got past. If he could have kept a bit closer. So 7th place has actually got a bit closer here, and I'm still right on the back of 8th place with only 6% of fuel left, so we are definitely running out, but the car gets lighter as you run out of fuel, and therefore you use less fuel at the end of the race. So that is something to think about as well. Can we get this 8th place? Can we gain 7th even? It goes a little bit wide and I can't quite force my way up the inside on the way out of Pouhon. The space just wasn't quite there. So I have to wait and be a little bit more patient. There is one more really good overtaking opportunity on the lap, and that is into the bus stop chicane at the very end. He does have the defence though of having a very quick car in a straight line. That is probably one of the best defensive mechanisms you can have on your car, just having really good straight line speed, as you can get away into the big braking zones. As we come through here, he's just going to dip 2 wheels wide. He's very wide onto the AstroTurf. He's going to lose speed. Spaniard spun around as well. We're going to gain 2 positions, 2 for the price of 1. Go from 9th up to 7th. Is there a potential move for 6th place here? Is it on? We're on 0% fuel. I'm going to have to save the fuel. There's no point risking it and going for 6th place. He's too far away anyway, I think, to go for lunge of the millennium. Into the final chicane, through the first curb, the second curb, 0% fuel. We're going to bring it home with 0.0 laps of fuel remaining and finish in 7th. Wow, that was a very interesting race from 19th. It's just about patience and keeping it calm and just trying to minimise your battling. But in the end, we finished in 7th. It was a really fun race and one that I very much enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts as always, and I shall see you next time. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a nice day. Goodbye.